You're 26 years old now, and you're being forced to pay for your own health insurance. The world seems hostile and risky. You miss being 25, back when you were still just a boy. You need Obama butt balm. Your mother may not be paying for your health insurance anymore, but she can still bend you over her knee and slather your bare buns with a sticky, sticky balm, just like she does every time you have a boo-boo. For a risk-free sample, dial 1-800-BUTT-HURT. That's 1-800-BUTT-HURT. Hi, I'm here to sign up for ISIS.
You have come up to the wrong booth, boy. We are recruiting for CARE, an Islamic peace group. What does this look like to you? Some sort of gay pride parade?
I understand your oppression. I'm an ally.
Boy, get out of here before I decapitate you on camera. Peacefully, of course. This is a Muslim-only safe space.
I am a Muslim. I converted yesterday. I'm a genderqueer Muslim, okay? I would do anything. And I mean anything.
You would do anything now, would you? Okay, right this way.
Oh, goody.
Ahmed, we have a live one. Get the device.
Ooh, I like devices.
Okay, now take off your shirt for a moment.
Ooh, my God.
All right, strap it on like this.
Ooh.
Yes,
Ooh,
like
that
this.
tickles.
Ahmed, activate the device.
Ooh, is this a vibrating device?
Okay, my gay friend. You see that elementary school over there?
Yes, of course. There's kids playing and dancing and laughing and frolicking with joy.
Yes. Now go over there. Walk into the middle of the school. Throw your arms out into the air like you just made sweet love to Aisha and scream, Allahu Akbar!
Wait a minute, that seems a little strange.
Now, you did say you would do anything to help liberate the oppressed Muslim race, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, this is what needs to be done. It's totally safe. Go for it.
Well, okay. Allahu Akbar, kids!
Idiots.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Disgruntled Millennial Podcast, presented to you by Disgruntled Generation. My name is Brett Siegel, your fearless host. I always broadcast to you from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. Today we are here with Elijah Schaffer. He is the creator and the host of Slightly Offensive, a new video series, a new blog series. You can get him on all the YouTube channels, on Facebook, on everything. He is doing basically what I do, which is exposing the left by spreading truth and humor and by ridiculing the left and doing all this fun stuff that all of us love to do and a lot of conservatives find a little bit repellent, but for some reason I just don't know why. Welcome to the show, Elijah. How's it going?
You know what? It is going absolutely fantastic. It's about 68 degrees out here in Los Angeles, California, and I'm just excited to talk about some hot issues and continue to push what I like to call. I like what you said for a second there. You said a lot of conservatives don't like it, but I guess we're pushing what I like to call new wave conservatism or rationalism, which are the new generation of people who are not just trying to wear their suits and hold on to traditional values for tradition's sake, but we're fighting for the real ideas that are like on the line right now, like truth, free speech, and individual liberty and rights. And I'm glad that you have your show, and it's a privilege to be on it.
Thanks so much, and I totally agree with you. This is one of those times when the mask has come off the left, and they no longer get to hide behind being the party of compassion, the party of compassion, the party of tolerance, and they don't get to pin the right as being the super religious fuddy-duddies who just want to go around judging people all the time. Like Gavin McInnes likes to say, the conservatism is now the new punk rock because it's the thing that you're not supposed to do, according to the left. And since the left controls the media, the left controls Hollywood, conservatism actually is the new punk, and you actually see a lot of different types of people coming out and claiming their conservative status. Isn't that sort of an amazing phenomenon that's happened recently? That, now you start to see all these people of different colors actually coming together for a certain, for the ideology of freedom, which isn't really an ideology per se. It's just something that we all have. It's whether or not it's recognized by our government or whether or not it's recognized by other people. It's something that rings true for every person, I believe. So that's one of the reasons why conservatism these days is not something that is just for old white men, like the liberals like to say,
Right. No, yeah. And you know what? And you bring up an extremely good point there, because recently I was actually at the March for Our Rights in Los Angeles, which was sort of like a grassroots movement of people coming together to fight for our Second Amendment rights, to stick it to George Soros and to the establishment. Basically to say that we're not going away, we're not going to give away our rights. And something that really struck out to me was that when I was there, the majority of the people, I thought, like, honestly, I thought perhaps might actually just be a bunch of like young white guys, because that's what people had been saying were going to be at the march. But from my interviews and from actually being there, there was an equal mix of both Black, Hispanic, and white people there. There was a mix of men and women. And to be completely honest, though, I guess maybe I fall more into the traditional straight, cisgendered, white, heteronormative male, or whatever they're calling me these days. People were of all different religions. We had some atheists there. We had Scientologists there. We had Christians there. We had agnostics. I mean, there was such a breadth of people. And it was so strange, because some of the comments I got on my video from that march were people telling me, hey, Joy Villa, she's a Scientologist. And I said, I didn't go there with a care of what people's religion was. That wasn't what I was marching for. I was marching for liberty. And actually, the fact that she was a Scientologist, whether I agree with it or not, is actually why I was there, was the fact that as Americans, we're Americans first before we're identifying by these subsets and these groups that divide us. And we're fighting for the right for people to practice whatever religion they want to and to say whatever they want to. And I was blown away that a lot of what I heard these marches had been like were not what they were. And that's probably why they aren't getting a lot of press, because people don't want to take the veil off to show that the conservative movement is really actually a lot more diverse than the mainstream media likes to make it out to be.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things that the left likes to hang their hat on. They like to hang their hat on being the diverse group. But, they think as long as you have diverse colors, diverse sexual orientations, that it's okay for everyone to have exactly the same ideology. And that's what you notice among conservatives. And that's a really, really great point that you make, is that conservatism actually lends itself to the best kind of diversity that you can actually have, like the only moral kind of diversity that you can have. When you are forced into these groups, when you are forced into these different identities, that's not when people come together that's not when diverse people come together in a way that sort of makes diversity a good thing, that makes diversity a value. When people come together, you see, that's why conservatism, I think, you don't see people at these rallies who are people at the rallies. They have different beliefs. They have different belief structures, and it's really interesting when the liberals like to come out and say, "Oh, well, she's a Scientologist," as if. And then in the same breath accuse us of being sort of monochromatic, So it's one of those things that the veil is coming off. The veil is coming off every single day as more and more people from different backgrounds get together and support freedom. Because only when people are free can people actually engage in their different diverse opinions and their different, their different backgrounds and their different cultures and stuff. Like, only when people are free can they be left free to do, to basically be themselves, to be what the leftists like to say that they allegedly are.
Right. Yeah. And I believe that, because what was funny is, if you remember back around the time of Donald Trump's election, the liberals actually were the ones wearing physical masks at the rallies. I mean, they were covering their faces with bandanas and gas masks and whatever else, handkerchiefs, whatever they could cover their face, because there's this idea that when you kind of know that you're wrong, you want to stay hidden. There's like a famous verse in the Bible that talks about that when people go to do wrong, they do it in the darkness. And I think that proverb kind of holds true for all humanity, is when people know they're doing the wrong thing, they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be heard. And what you notice is on some of these channels on YouTube, I can't mention them probably by name, so I don't actually sponsor them, but there's plenty of other people interviewing people, talking to people at rallies and riots and different things. And you find that, whether it's a big name company or a small name YouTube channel, the left doesn't want to be interviewed. They don't really want other people to speak out. You'll find guards blocking people from interviewing. You'll find ushers and different types of coordinators pushing cameramen off the set. And those that do want to speak and want to be vocal, not only are they oftentimes violent, but they are, exactly like I said earlier, hiding their physical features. But what was cool is at the March for Our Rights, one thing that commentators kept noticing on YouTube was that comparatively towards a lot of my liberal videos, the conservatives were pretty peaceful and they were articulate. They also gave extremely good and logical answers to the questions that they were asked, and for the most part seemed rather welcoming. They neither had anything to hide. They gave first and last names, and they never once tried to hide their face, shut me out, or push me away. And I guess that kind of shows by the action of what it was, who really the party of division is and who is actually the party that's welcoming in someone, considering it was my first march that I had been to for this conservative movement, and they welcomed me in like one of their own.
Well, of course, and this is one of those things that the left doesn't want you to know. They don't want you to. You made a great point. They don't want to answer your questions. They get very hostile when you start asking them questions. First of all, it comes from the idea that they take everything they believe as gospel, which is kind of interesting because they are always going around criticizing different religions and criticizing organized religion, when they're the ones who are saying, well, that they worship at the altar of science, supposedly, the global warming science. The science is in. If you don't believe it, you're a denier. They don't want to be asked the tough questions because they don't have any answers for them. That's why they hate being asked the questions. That's why when a conservative someone with a Trump hat comes in and starts asking any questions, you have these high school teachers saying, "Oh, bring some muscle in here. We need some muscle. We got to get this guy out of here." They don't want to answer any questions because they know how hollow their ideology is. They know that if they are honest with themselves, and they are going to eventually have to agree and concede that their beliefs imply and necessitate some extremely nefarious, dark stuff. Like, for example, you don't have any freedom rights. You don't have any rights to speak of. You don't have your gun rights. You don't have your free speech rights. You don't have the right to earn to keep the money that you earn, which is the work, which is the work, the solid form of the work that you do during the day. That's your money. So when they say, "Oh, let's redistribute it here, let's redistribute it there," they're basically saying to you that you don't have the right to your work, which is basically slavery. What is it when someone is forced to work for someone else for free? That's called slavery. They don't want to admit that they support things like slavery. They don't want to admit that they don't support property rights at all. So, when you ask them questions, and this is all it takes to defeat a liberal. You don't even need to make any arguments. All you need to do is make them defend their own, and they will implode right there in front of you.
Right.
And this is exactly why like you said, they cover themselves, they cover their faces. They don't want people to know who they are physically, and they don't want people to know who they are mentally. Even though we already do know who they are mentally, they are just having trouble looking in the mirror. And the best way to defeat them is to do what guys like you do, which is going to these marches and asking the tough questions and making the people defend their beliefs. And this is one of the differences between liberals and conservatives. Conservatives have no problem defending their beliefs. They have no problem showing their faces because they actually have a leg to stand on. At the end of the day, conservatives aren't going to hang their hat on hanging your hat on freedom is a good thing. It's objectively a good thing because you respect everybody else's rights. The liberals, they are going to have to eventually admit that they don't respect other people's rights. And since saying that you believe in thieving and saying that you believe in slavery and saying that you believe in, taking people's rights away, since that's not politically palatable, they have to turn it around on you and make it seem like you are some kind of a racist. And since you can only say you're a racist so many times in the same sentence without getting repetitive, they want to block you from saying your piece while trying to criticize you for even asking them questions in the first place. How could you even ask me about global warming? The science is in. I'm not even going to talk about that because you are just a denier. I don't talk to deniers. It's like a loophole for them to get out of any difficult or tricky questions, and they think that we don't see right through them.
Right. It's almost kind of like America is in a bad marriage where the left and the right are the husband and the wife, and one of them is trying to fix the marriage through logic, and the other one is defiant and is just saying, no, I don't want to listen to you because I'm right and you're wrong. And obviously with divorce being somewhere around 50%, we could see that this relational problem with individuals not being able to communicate and understand each other is at an all-time high. And I know that from looking into some science, I myself studied molecular biology in college, and so I'm very familiar with the scientific method and how to approach logic and come to a reasonable conclusion on a matter, right? And of course, being a physical scientist, or I guess a life scientist, I'm very much about fact. I'm about coming to a definitive answer.
Right.
What's conjecture is conjecture. So it actually applies a lot to the political spectrum because, what happens here is you have one group who is always going to win, and that's the conservatives because of one funny thing that happened recently. I was it was off camera, off comment, but somebody asked me, well, you were so quick with your questions. How do you know where you're coming from? Like, how do you know your stance? And I said, it's this crazy idea, which is this idea called absolute truth, which is that there are some things that are just inherently true. And when you understand truth and you know that something's right and not everything is up for interpretation, of course, there's different application. That's why we have, the courts and the legislation and whatnot to apply certain laws and to interpret them. But at the same time, I said, I'm coming out here with a moral backbone, kind of coming and claiming, I know this to be truth based off of facts. And they're like, well, how do you know? I said, because of evidence. And the guy was blown away that I'm saying that I'm building my views off of the evidence that I've witnessed. And that goes for everything in my life, whether it's my faith or my politics or my professional scientific life. I mean, I want to see the evidence. And so what I laughed about yesterday, I actually filmed a new video, which I'm sure we might touch on a little bit later, maybe on the Roseanne controversy. But what was so funny is I interviewed a girl for about 15 minutes without ever telling her any details of what I was talking about and continually poking at her to give me her opinion on things that I never gave her any evidence for or never even articulated to the slightest degree of what I was talking about. And she continued on and bantered about her opinions on things that may or may not have even existed. And that summarizes a lot of where the left is at. They're told one thing, they're given it dogmatically, then because here's the truth, they say New Zealand has a lot of sheep, but the reality is that the human race, this is not a slight on humans or America, but this is just the truth for modern society. Most people are sheep. And the reason why conservatives seem to be losing, because conservatives want to change sheep into shepherds. But liberals just take the sheep and bring them into their corral and say, okay, follow us. But we're not just trying to get people to listen to what we're saying. We're trying to get people, ironically, it sounds almost counterproductive, to challenge what we're saying. We're trying to get people to think for themselves, to apply knowledge in real life. And if they disagree with us in the end, we would rather have Americans think for themselves and disagree with us than just agree with us and be brain dead. We're the party of knowledge. We're the party of empowerment. But honestly, that challenges the establishment authority. It scares Democrats. It scares the leftists. I don't even want to say Democrats anymore because the leftists have gone so far away from the original Democrat platforms from the 70s and 80s and 90s that it's to a point now where it's its own, I guess it's just a mindless party that doesn't even have a name because it's so otherworldly. It's absolutely insane.
Right. And, I think part of that comes from this this postmodernist aspect that's been sort of infused into people's lives. Like you said, and just like I try to do, is I go around thinking, okay, well, there are certain things that are true, there are certain things that aren't true, and if you're going to make a claim, you have to back it up with some evidence, and that goes for something like global warming or like saying that Donald Trump is a racist. Now, of course, the left is going to use these words that are going to sort of muddy the water a little bit, because I mean, how do you know if someone's a racist? How do you know if what's in someone's heart? And since science isn't really on their side, since reason, logic isn't on their side, they are going to go with the one that sort of seems the most nebulous, because obviously they can't sit there and defend themselves. It's just funny to me how the people who are propagating this idea that there is no such thing as objective truth, there's no such thing as a better way to do things, or an optimal way to do things, like they think that, for example, they would equate, look, a biological mom, biological dad, that's the most optimal situation for a child. Okay. And for me to say that as an absolute truth, I do believe that. I do think that is an absolute truth. All things being equal, mom and dad, biological mom and dad, that's the best thing for a kid. But they take that in order to mean something like, oh, well, you just hate gay people and you just hate transgendered people. That's just, you hate single moms. You hate this, you hate that. It's this, this is one of those things where the idea of postmodernism, the idea of subjectivism, of cultural relativism, it breaks down every time they try to, it breaks. It's one of those self-defeating propositions.
Yeah, you hit on the head.
It's one of those self-defeating propositions, because if you were going to go around saying that, that there is no such thing as truth, well, you stated that as a fact of the matter. Is that true or not? Is what you're saying not true? Because if you say that there is no truth in the world, well, you just stated that as a statement of truth. So therefore, your statement is false. And this is why they break down. This is why they recoil into this sort of emotion-driven narrative, because the entire philosophy is completely incoherent. Once you lend them that sort of postmodern subjectivist aspect to their belief system, they can literally go anywhere with it, because it's absolutely incoherent.
Right, which almost sets us up to fail, because that's the key thing, like you said initially in our conversation, about letting them defeat themselves. Because if you're familiar with the child's story of the Emperor's New Clothes, not to be confused with Emperor's New Groove, for those that are of a younger audience, it's an old story about an emperor who is basically swindled into buying invisible clothes that aren't real. But the salesmen are so tricky, and they're such swindlers, that they're able to even take the mightiest person in the kingdom out of his own pride, and they're able to convince him to pay for something that doesn't exist. Right. Then you find that the king goes out and he wants to show off his new clothes to the kingdom. And of course, it's a childhood story, so it's not super dirty, but he's in his underwear or whatever. And as a kid, that's the most shameful thing. You don't want to be seen in your underwear in front of your classmates. He goes out into the public, and everyone's laughing because they can see that he's just in his underwear. And the king is like almost baffled, because he goes like, I can't believe this, because what are they laughing at? Is it my clothes? And then he realizes how stupid he is, that, some people are really tricky out there. And just because they can try to convince you something's true, it is possible, even the kings, to be tricked into believing a complete lie. And eventually lies end up becoming transparent, and you can see through them. And that's the beauty about truth, is that darkness and untruth eventually always gets shown out in the light. And I continue to tell people that live for truth and follow what's right. Because what happens is, like you said, with this self-defeating argument, when you have an enemy who's not living upon the grounds of logic, there is no argument, right? Because in order for an argument, you have to have a foundation and have to have a platform to argue off of. But when you go into an argument, it's more of a trap than it is a foundation. And if you go in trying to explain yourself, the issue with the left is that they're a party of the against. They're not actually for anything. They're just against things. So they don't stand up for anything. So all they can do to you is come against you. They can't line up with you. They can't agree with you because they're not even standing up for anything. They have these vague ideas of women's rights, and they can't explain them. These vague ideas of minority equalization and these platforms of bringing everyone into equity, and they can't explain it. This idea of normalization of, I would say, what are mental ideologies like transsexualism, gender dysphoria, gender identity disorder. I know that's unpopular. I did my thesis in college on gender dysphoria, and I know in the psychological DSM-5, it's still categorized as a disorder.
Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter to them because when you come, I'll just end with this. I was in a somewhat of a debate with a gentleman that worked at a tech company, and I said, did you know gender dysphoria, in the middle of our conversation, in context, is actually categorized as a mental disorder? And he just got mad and started saying these absurd things about animals having, intercourse with the same gender. And I said, dude, I'm not even talking about being homosexual or anything. And he didn't even know the difference between gender dysphoria and being gay. And he's over here mad at me, visually and physically upset, getting aggressive over an argument that he doesn't even understand. And once I explained it to him, he just said, never mind, and didn't even want to correct his worldview. And that's the enemy, which is, I would say they're almost, maybe in some ways where I live, they're definitely more numerable, absolutely more numerable here. But as far as our country, I don't think we're losing the battle as much as we think, because young people, they want knowledge. They really, truly want to be armed with truth. And when we let them know that they're not sheep, that they're capable of growing, we can prevent that kind of stuff from happening, I think, in the future, as long as we stick to our guns and we use traditional Western ideologies like logic and philosophy that are based upon central core ideas of truth. I think we're going to actually break through this intellectual civil war.
I agree with you, and I think that a lot of kids, just like the child in the story that you just mentioned, the Emporors New Clothes, a lot of these kids, when they're told by these teachers that that there is no objective reality, that there is no such thing as truth, that there's no such thing as one way is better than the other, unless you're a conservative, in which case you're worse than everything. I think that a lot of these contradictions that cause cognitive dissonance, I think they're immediately apparent to children, like the innocent child who just looks at this guy and goes, why is that guy naked? Why isn't he wearing any clothes? And the only tactic that they have is they have to use this bully tactic. They have to make you think that you are a child murderer if you don't believe in redistribution of wealth. Let's say that, for example, I believed that man were causing global warming. So what? That doesn't necessitate redistribution of wealth or some sort of globalist policy, which would cripple all the energy sources across the world. That's not necessarily what that implies. In fact, the more technologically advanced we become, the better we become at being more efficient and saving energy and doing all that kind of stuff. And of course, you have the power of the purse, where if you think that a certain energy source is has too many effects on the environment, you can choose not to purchase it. And if enough people do that, then changes will be made. But this idea that, okay, so since you believe in one, if you accept one part of their narrative, well, then you have to accept every other part of their narrative. That's one of those things that, I think kids can actually see that. And unless they're bullied into thinking that they're these terrible people, I think kids, young people would see through that. And with the advent of the new media and all the cool things that we're getting on YouTube, shows like yours, shows like mine, I think that this is one of the things that's sort of letting kids and younger people know that it's okay to look with your eyes and to not be bullied into the idea that your lying eyes are deceiving you all the time.
Right. And, and I want to say, for anybody who is listening, that currently hears, okay, yeah, he has a show, I have a show. Well, what can I do? The reality is I was actually inspired by a new friend of mine named Austin Fletcher. He runs a show on YouTube called Flecka's Talks. I don't know if you've heard of that. Some of you might have watched his videos. He's the famous guy with a wooden spoon. But I remember he said one thing that caught me. He said, I just go out and I record with a camera and a spoon. Basically saying, you really don't need a ton of equipment and things to actually make a difference. You got to go out and start start doing what your heart is telling you to do. And if you think that, okay, well, there's already enough people in the conservative movement, I could also just say not even conservative, but again, new wave conservatism or rationalism that are out there trying to get the message across, that's where I would say you're wrong. Because, if you notice when Donald Trump made this message, this goes into something deeper on my heart here as I continue to talk to the listeners. The mainstream media, when Donald Trump called MS-13 members who brutally rape, murder, and kill American citizens animals, okay? The mainstream media, when they picked up that story, and of course, those of you listening are probably familiar, they skewed it to say that Donald Trump was calling immigrants animals. Okay, so while that is pretty absurd, the key thing to point out here is that it was not a one outlet. This isn't just the HuffPost that you would expect, or like BuzzFeed News that suddenly just totally thrashed Donald Trump. I mean, every single that I can think of, the major networks, I might miss a couple, so I don't want to over exaggerate, but they were actually carrying the same story. So it got me thinking. It got me thinking. I'm not a crazy conspiracy theorist. Now, I know that's where I differ from some conservatives. I don't believe in all the conspiracy theories. I think some of them are probably true. We can't prove them all. But I know one theory, it's not a conspiracy, and it's that the liberal mainstream media colludes together to push agendas and to support narratives to try to confuse the American people.
Absolutely.
And that is not a conspiracy. That's just generally known truth. 77% Americans in a recent poll believe that the mainstream media produces fake news on a regular basis. So where I jumped to that is I realized, you know what, though? Conservatives at this point are not in any way, shape, or form, they are not working together strong enough to produce content with a similar message to try to change minds. And I was recognizing, what is our content? What is our message? Our message is the truth. We don't need to get together and all get on the phone and say, hey, what are we going to push this month? Our message together is to spread awareness of the realities that are going on in this world, shedding light on the darkness, bringing out the secret things that people think they're doing, that they're tricking and duping the American people. And of course, once you dupe the American people, you can dupe the whole world, because we are the leader of the free world. So what happens is if we come together, and if you on your own find out, how can I contribute? I have a friend I met yesterday who's a comedian, and she's spreading conservative ideas through comedy, which of course is not there. She got threatened last night by a group of girls out here in LA after she said that she was a conservative, and they went to try to attack her, but she pulled out a self-defense, a knife, and she said, hey, don't get any closer to me. And when they realized the reality that they were going to fight her words with violence, that's the kind of things we got to expose. I told her, you got to start wearing a body cam. We got to start exposing these people who are attacking you. See, it doesn't matter what kind of equipment you have. If you know what the truth is, the truth sets you free. And if you are free, you're truly free indeed. The government can put shackles on your wrists. They can shut down your channels. They can demonetize your accounts. But we're in this for the long haul. And whatever it is, you just pick up your phone and start recording people. Start your own channel. Do whatever you got to do, your own podcast. You can fight for truth together. And as long as you're pushing a truthful message based on evidence and facts, then you really are part of the larger conservative network, and you're no different than anyone else, whether you have a lot of followers or not.
I would love to talk to your friend, and I think you made a great point just now, though, and I want to expand on it. Well, the thing that is the conservatives' biggest strength is the fact that we are individuals. It's the fact that we think for ourselves. It's the fact that we don't let people try to deceive us. It's the fact that we look with our eyes, and we don't let people bully us into not believing our own eyes. And the leftists, they go around with these collective, they're total collectivists. So of course, this media outlet and that media outlet, they're going to get together. They can't think individually. That's why they have to get together and do that. And this is also one of our weaknesses as well, because think about it. You have all these marches that are going on. Millions and millions and millions of liberals get together so that they can walk around the street and chant and disrupt businesses and piss people off along the way and upset everybody. But the conservatives try to have a rally. It's almost impossible getting a bunch of people together, but that's because we are individuals. We have so many different aspects to our personalities. We think for ourselves, and that's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of these big conservative rallies. The March for Our Rights in LA, I understand it was small, but it was honest. It was really, really, really honest. And I don't know if you knew this, but I was one of the organizers of that. I helped get a lot of the speakers to organize. Ari David Sabo is one of my buddies. He's been on the show before, and
nice.
Joy Villa, and just a bunch of I helped get speakers all around the country. I did a speech in Nashville with Annie Cyrus and Sabele Capizzuti. By the way, the creator of the March for Our Rights is actually a legal immigrant who's a woman who is from Brazil. She's Italian, Brazilian, and so she completely lays waste to the idea that all these marches are just a bunch of old white men. She's a legal immigrant. She's a foreigner. Not a foreigner anymore, but she wasn't born here. So just that idea, that we all come from all these different backgrounds and we all have our own independent thoughts, that's going to make it a little bit harder. And I think you're absolutely right that we need to sort of get together. We need to figure out our own way of doing this. Because you know what? We started doing the March for Our Rights thing, and I was like, I don't want to march. The only reason these people march is because how many times can you say that conservatives want to paint the walls with the blood of children? How many times can you say that in one march? You can't. Because that's basically everything that they were saying. That's the entirety of their argument, which is basically that conservatives are terrible and they don't care about kids. You can only say that so many times, so they have to pad their event by walking around the block and chanting all these mantras. And of course, then they make fun of conservatives for being religious, even though what they do is actually a whole lot more cult-like. But that's one of the reasons why conservatives have issues getting together and getting the message straight, is because that's where the real diversity is. That's where the real diversity of opinions are.
Right. You know what? And this is something else I want to bring up from what you're saying. For the listeners that are tuning in, that may be thinking, okay, well, these people that are talking right now, they're more like extreme, and I'm just the average person, or I don't have any notoriety or whatever, and so maybe what they're talking about is just their take or their perspective. But the reality is, if you look in retrospect to the history of the world, leftist ideas and policies are not anything new. Okay, they're something that have been around from whether you go to Stalin or you go to Mao Zedong, right? Or you can go basically to Hitler. You can go to anybody who's a socialist, democratic socialist, communist. These ideas of states being controlled by big government, Venezuela, Cuba, modern day, these ideas are not new, and they're also currently in place around our world. And the reason why we're so passionate about this is because the left, we're not conspiracy theorists, because we know how the left works, and we know the way that the left tries to bring these ideas into the country to try to take hold of a nation. And what we're really doing is we are fighting an intellectual battle on the internet, in the underground media, because of course we won't have a voice in the mainstream media. I don't really watch Fox News very much myself. I'm sure I'll get murdered by half the conservatives for saying that. But in general, I don't trust the mainstream media that much myself. So I really try to go to more underground circuits, more underground networks, more online-based independent journalists, where I can get a clearer picture of what's going on. And what you realize is the same things that went on in Venezuela in the last decade, the same things that went on in Cuba 50 years ago, the same things that went on in the Russian Revolution 60, 70 years ago, the same things that went on in China 60, 70 years ago in the Chinese Revolution. These kinds of ideas, these are the same ideologies that people are bringing in and pushing into our country today. And we know that when these ideas come into play, when people start trying to take away your guns, when they start trying to take away your rights, eventually mass murder and comes across, and people go, well, you're an extremist, you're crazy, you're insane, you're saying these things. No, I'm going off of evidence from where this has happened in every country. But what the leftists always say is, well, they just did it wrong. Okay, so every country who pushed leftist ideas on a mass scale did it wrong, and somehow we're going to get it right. See, that's not true, and we know that. So what we're doing here is we're doing something that I think is not only dangerous for the future, but is somewhat ballsy, if I'm allowed to say that on your show.
Yeah, of course.
Is that we are fighting the intellectual civil war right now, where we realize that they're waging war in our universities, in our public schools. They're waging war on our television shows, on our movies, music, and they're pushing a streamlined agenda to get the nation to fall in line with one way of viewing things. But here's what I love about America, is something that the British, if I'm correct, all the historians can fact check me on that one, but they said something about the U.S. when they came in 1812 was that, we were just so uncivilized. We were like, we were wild. And I believe they might have said that similarly during the Revolution, or it was the Revolution alone, where they needed to come in and bring order to what was kind of a chaotic society. And what Britain and the establishment and the monarchy finds to be chaotic, we find to be ingenious, and what makes our nation great. This collectivist idea where we all have to be one-minded and kind of just fall in line is very British idea. It's a very monarchical idea where you fall in line with an idea that is given to you, and you just don't ask questions. I mean, we already know what's gone on with Tommy Robinson, what's happened with Lauren Southern, and just different people out in the UK. They are not exactly a very free society at all, and we are not going to see that happen in our country. We didn't let that happen in 1776. During that era, we didn't let that happen. Around the area in the 1800s, and quite frankly, we're not going to let that happen again. Britain might not be invading us with ships. We might not be attacked by Japan on our islands. But what we do have is our own countrymen coming in, bringing in foreign ideas, which do not represent the constitutional integrity of our country, that does not represent the fabric, the framework, and the character of what made us great in the first place.
Right.
And they're trying to push that, and we know where that's going to lead. And the rest of the masses, they don't know that yet, but we're not talking down on them. We're fighting for them a war that they don't even know that we're battling. And in the meantime, we're all being mocked for it. Because we all get grouped in the same category. So we're risking our reputation. The big companies demonetize all of our content. We are giving up time and not making a lot of money. We are risking our future jobs, our security, and even with threats, our own safety and ability to travel around the world. Why? Because we're all just a bunch of nut jobs? No, we are college-educated, diverse, both genders, even multinational individuals that all have come to the same conclusion. There is a Soros, I like to just call it Soros's war, but I'm sure there's many other players. There's a Soros war to switch this country into something it's not, to try to bring together a one world government, in my opinion, or some sort of globalist agenda. And we're here to say that America doesn't play that way. We aren't going to join some EU hack organization. We aren't going to fall in line with suppressors trying to make us fall in line with one unity or one idea of thought. We stand on our rights, and with those rights, we're not going to let anyone take them away. But I pray to God that it doesn't have to turn into a war where guns are involved, where we have to fight. But I do know which side owns all the guns, so I'm glad I'm on the right one. But,
Same here.
But I hope it never gets to that. And at this point, I know that we are gaining the upper hand intellectually. And I think if we continue to fight and we're willing to give up our freedom, maybe it won't get as bad as it already has in the UK. And we can actually turn this country around. After all, Donald Trump is sitting in the presidency, and that is a good sign for the future of our country.
That's a great thing. I actually saw a really funny meme the other day. It said, well, the British tried to take our guns. We shot them.
It's true.
So I mean, one of the things that, I think we buy into this idea that socialism, this is one of the things I think all conservatives need to be aware of. Even the word capitalist is a word that was sort of coined by Marxists to describe these evil, terrible, bourgeois folks who are stealing money from the workers, even though the workers wouldn't have had jobs without all those people, but whatever, that's a different story. But I think we buy into this idea that socialism was meant to work. That's why they can say things like, oh, well, it works in theory. Okay, well, if it works in theory, why doesn't it work in reality? If it's, it's never, it's never ever worked ever. So, so we still, to this day, we still buy into this idea that they have got good intentions. The truth is that socialism actually does work. It works in theory and it works in reality. It's just the point of socialism isn't what they say it is. The point of socialism is a race to the bottom. It's a race to the lowest common denominator. That's actually what it is. There's nothing in socialism or Marxism about production or free or property rights or anything like that. That's what led to prosperity. That's what America is all about. It was having the freedom to do with your money what you want to do with it so that you can create stuff and build wealth. Marxism is all about redistributing wealth. It's got nothing to do with creating prosperity. It's about giving allegedly everyone, at least the bare minimum. It's a race to the bare minimum. And in that way, socialism, Marxism actually works like a charm. It works every single time. It works to destroy things. It works to unearth capitalism. In fact, Without capitalism, there would be no Marxism. Marxism was created as an outgrowth of capitalism because this angry guy who was upset that he couldn't hack it on the free market, who was living on some guy's couch, I'm talking about Karl Marx, he got a little bit jealous that other people are better at things than he is, and he had to write this whole entire philosophy, this whole entire philosophical structure so that he wouldn't feel bad about himself anymore. And so that people who can't hack it on the free market don't feel bad about themselves anymore. Because you know what? Charity, that's mean. Charity is mean, okay, right? Because that just, that's an admission that some people are more potent on the free market than others. And since everybody's the same, that's somehow offensive, So what they do is they literally crush the charitable spirit that most people have. Most people don't want to see people dying on the street. Most people don't want to see sick kids go without health care. Most people actually give to charity when they're left to their own devices. But what does socialism do? Socialism takes it away from you, takes your money away by force. It gives you, if socialism were employed in its, in the fullest sense of the word, it wouldn't leave you that much to be charitable with.
Right. So, you know what? I was gonna say real fast, just because I know somebody listening right now might immediately pull up this idea of like, okay, well, what about Norway and Sweden? Because if you look at the UN and Bloomberg rankings for the top economies that just recently got released, Norway and Sweden are very high up there, which are, I mean, I'm not a political scientist, so I'm not sure the exact way they call them, but I know I have friends that live in Sweden and Norway, and they would describe it to me as a socialist society. So I hear people say, yeah, but they're in the top 10, like top 20 strong economies in the world, and they are socialist. So doesn't that work? Isn't this guy, isn't disgruntled millennial, this channel, this is so biased. I mean, look, they're just bringing up Venezuela and Cuba and okay, you know what? But here's some evidence to what you're saying. And this is not my friend lives there, so I'm saying here's how it is there. Okay, first of all, socialism may kind of work in what's called a homogenous society. Okay, these places for thousands of years, I might even say, were one race. You meet Swedish people and they're Swedish. You meet Norwegian people, they're Norwegian. I mean, maybe they're a little bit the same people almost before they kind of completely divided, but for the most part, they come from the same hereditary line. Okay, so you have these countries. So number one, they're homogenous. So they probably all have the same culture and idea. Number two, that's sort of like a tribalism, which brings me to that point,
exactly.
Is that the populations are like the size of Los Angeles County, okay? The size of this country is the size of Los Angeles County. So now we're talking about a small group. This is not a large scale
90%
state.
white.
Yeah, 90% white, large scale, contributing members. Now, here's the funny thing. Socialism has kind of worked. However, it's now backfiring because it did work when you had a perfect society that people would call them the perfect societies, not because they're white. No, I'm not racist, and I'm not saying that. I meant perfect societies because they were homogenous and had similar ways of thinking, therefore could collectively probably come up with governmental ideas that worked for their people. They started allowing mass immigration of Muslim immigration. And no, I am not against Muslims. I'm not against Muslims immigrating. I'm against people immigrating based off of who they are and not off of merit. I'm on a merit-based immigration person.
Exactly.
And so I don't want anyone to twist these words, or I don't even know if your videos are monetized by YouTube, but I don't want them to try to demonetize it because of some flag racist thing that they would try to claim. But the reality is that when you start bringing these people in, what I'm hearing in these reports is that you're starting to have people come in who are not contributing to the system and are starting to take advantage. And that's the key issue, is eventually left-wing policies, though they sound good in theory, make room for corruption and loopholes that end up causing the demise. So while we're looking, Norway and Sweden, they're socialist. I mean, we're looking at a government of only maybe, I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure some of these practices have really been pushed 50, 60, 70 years. Including even in Iceland, some of their socialist policies of reform have only been around this last 4 to 7 years, even on equal rights and womanhood that people are touting. I mean, this is not long-term projections. We're not looking at a country that's sustained like this for hundreds of years. We're looking at a short-term project, which ironically, after a half a century or so, I think that's my estimate, though I could be off by a couple decades or some numbers there.
They generally tend to implode.
It's already starting, and you're finding that there's these huge populations. I mean, this is not, by the way, when I say huge, I don't mean they let in 30, amnesty-based immigrant families, which we should have amnesty. I'm saying they let in like 1 million people. When you have a population of 9 to 10 million people that has a subsidy welfare based program, and then you let in and increase your population by 10% and let in over 1 million people, unregistered, undocumented, unfamiliar with the territory. I used to work for a institution, which I can't name here, but I used to give tours and help people to get acclimated when I was younger to the United States. And they were from Sweden and Norway. And the girls would always tell me about how the Islamic immigrants would shame them for dressing what they slutty, which is of course a relative idea depending on where you live.
Right.
But these people are not from the country. So what it does is you have to ask yourself, well, why are they going to those countries? Because they see a system to take advantage of.
Exactly.
That's why. It's like we can go take advantage of that system. That's awesome. Why do you think illegal immigration went down under Trump for a while? Because people stopped advantage of. And when you have a leftist idea, you open up the door for people to take advantage of you. Yes, if you were all perfect and you all really wanted to help each other and be good, maybe it would work. But sorry, humans aren't perfect. Humans are selfish. Humans are corrupted. We've all done things we regret. And you don't want to give that much power to a thing that is just an idea. You want to give the power to the people, because I believe people have the right to make decisions for themselves, including with their money. And you find out there in those societies, like you said about charity, people are not giving to charity. People are not nice out there. People don't say hello to each other on the street. It's a society of recluses. It's not a warm, welcoming American howdy, how are you doing society. It's created this individualistic society where people are dependent on the state, pay into the state, live their own lives, and now are being, I would say, even economically and socially raped, even though it's vulgar terms, and they're not even allowed to talk about it without getting in trouble by their government. Do you want that in this country? I don't want that in this country.
No, not at all. And I think one of the things that you make a good point about Sweden is that Sweden actually is actually very capitalist in nature. They have a bunch of socialist policies, but I think the main part about why it's worked is because it is so homogenized. You have all these immigrants. They come in, they don't know the language, they need housing, they need food, they don't have the job skills to work on the market, so they're going to need to be subsidized. Which is why this is just another thing to me that exposes the hypocrisy of the left, because they don't really want to help these refugees. They don't want them in their homes. They want them in other people's homes. They don't want to actually help these people. And this is perfect example, okay? Liberals want equality and diversity at the same time. Equality is when everybody's the same. Diversity is when everybody's different. So if you support one, they can basically accuse you of negating the other, which is sort of it's actually pretty genius. It's really, really genius. But Sweden is one of those places where they are the ones that have to choose. Do you want equality or do you want diversity? Because if you want diversity, well, then this socialist system isn't going to work. It's going to implode. If you want equality, well, then you guys are going to have to. You're going to have to give a little bit on the diversity side. But when they try to uphold these contradictory beliefs at the same time, like, for example, gentrification is racist, but white flight is also racist. How do you figure that? When they try to uphold these completely opposite things.
Paradoxical.
Yeah, exactly. When they try to uphold it at the same time, it just exposes the fact that they're not really interested in solving the problem. Just like I was saying earlier about the global warming debate, let's say I gave it to them that man was causing global warming. How does that imply a redistribution of wealth? How does that imply carbon taxes? Why don't we talk about more technology? Why don't we talk about more freedom or more, less subsidies and less government interference so that people could actually take the free market approach, which is basically what has turned a lot of these cities that were getting smogged up into nicer places to live when companies were left free to their own devices to create products that were a little bit more environmentally friendly. Just one example out of hundreds of examples that on the liberal side where it's virtually, if you just look at what they're saying, if you look at the things that they uphold simultaneously, you can see that it's more about the ideology than it is about actually helping people or solving people. Because every single time one of those two things comes into play, like every single time you have the option to do a free market solution that actually works against the socialist solution that never works, other than to destroy things. They always pick the more government interference. They always pick the socialist policy. They always pick the Marxism, which is why I don't believe they care about blacks. I don't believe they care about gays. I don't believe they care about Muslims. I don't believe they care about trans. I don't believe they care about any of these people that they actually claim to care about, because they would do the thing that actually helps people, which is freedom and free market capitalism and all that good stuff that socialism just rejects wholesale.
Right. You know what? And that's a good note you said about the paradox of the left, which is the self-defeating argument that we were talking about. You know, I was at Whittier College, which is the alma mater of President Nixon, which I know many people think he was terrible. But to be quite frank, the things that he got impeached for, I mean, are just commonplace in politics today. So while I'm not excusing his behavior nor the behavior of politicians today, I wish things were a little more upright and moral. I mean, come on, let's talk about Hillary. She almost became president. Thank God she didn't. But if he got impeached for what he did, then she should be hung
for treason. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, not espousing to actually cause her any harm, but on those grounds, that's where we would have went. However, I will say that I went there. And so, you know, I'm thinking this is a liberal arts school. It's historic. I mean, one of our presidents went there, right? I mean, presidents don't go to stupid schools. I mean, these guys are smart guys. And you know, the video that I made there asking people about the Boy Scouts accepting girls turned out so absurd that it's already hitting like 50,000 views in just a couple of weeks, which is big for my channel. I know some people have millions, but it's hitting views because it's resonating with a couple lines, I believe, that are actually beginning to resonate more deeply with the viewers. Is one girl introduces herself as they who cannot be named. And then that's her first. Yeah, that's her. That's
her first name.
That was her first. And then I just asked her a simple question: what did you think about the Boy Scouts now accepting girls? And her response is almost scripted. She goes, you know, and people are accusing me of scripting this, and it is not. I can guarantee this is real people, and people are accusing me of approaching the certain looking people. No, I approached. I approached the first 10 people that I could find.
It's doctored footage. It's doctored footage.
Right. Leftists are accusing me of trying to make her look bad. I didn't, and she goes, "I am a non-binary trans individual." Now, just think about that. Non-binary, which I don't even believe in, but let's just say that it exists on those grounds, is this idea that you're not on the binary, right? This idea of gender fluidity that people accept. You're neither male or female. You're non-binary. You're just in this middle ground, almost kind of like a asexual.
Like a blob.
You don't know what you are. And then she identifies herself as transgender. So transgender is switching from male to female or from female to male, but non-binary means you're nothing. So you're a nothing something.
Right.
That's what she identified as. She was a they nothing. She was a plural pronoun nothing something. And I just thought,
oh my God.
She started the interview and I was like, oh, this is going to be so good because, and then I asked her this. So she says, you know, well, women are oppressed. And I ask her a simple question. I go, well, how are they oppressed? And she goes, do you want me to give you like facts? I said, yeah, like 5 facts. And she goes, 5 facts. I mean,
your facts are racist.
Yeah. She goes, like lived experience? And I was like, yeah, you know, I was like, okay, so you're a plural pronoun, nothing something, who has strong opinions, which currently are not supported by facts. And then she goes on to claim to me about, she finally comes up with some facts. Okay, so she goes, okay, so the gender pay gap, which within like 2 seconds of her starting, I immediately refute, well, like that's been refuted multiple times. And I brought up the fact, I said, well, if women make less than men, then wouldn't companies just like hire women? Like if women did the same job and worked and made less, why would companies not just hire women? Which set her off, just getting upset. Actually, even off the camera, which I can't say who, but one of the people there berated us for a long period of time, telling us we couldn't post it. I wish we could, about how we're just sexist and mean for questioning the wage gap. See, I came in with facts and told her that it was wrong, but we were evil for questioning their opinion. And that was what what really made me laugh, not only that, but if you watch the video, I will not comment anything about her appearance. You can definitely tell she's a female. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that one. She walks like a duck, talks like a duck. It is a duck.
Right.
But at the same time, she doesn't know who she is. She identifies out things that don't exist. She believes things. And you know what was the best thing when I questioned the wage gap? I said, well, how do you know that? And she goes, I've taken a couple of feminist theory classes. So
God.
So it's this circle self-defeating argument, like you said, where it's like, okay, so your facts are from your institution and your opinions formed from your institution to support your institution, but where's the institution getting these ideas? And you know, that's what we got to come to. These ideas are coming from establishment organizations, like and what were once respected people like professors, politicians. I mean, they're coming from our educational institutions. And her defense was that she heard it in a class. She has no idea that half of America doesn't even respect higher education, most higher education. I mean, I have a STEM degree, and it's useful and helpful, and I would never talk down STEM degrees and certain concentrations, which are very useful for technology advancement, science of our country. But you know what? She also then explains to me. She says, and this is some of the stuff that's even off record. I mean, it's not even on the video. But she explains in the video. She goes, you know, men are trained to do STEM fields, and that's that they're trained. So then I asked her, well, what's your degree? And she goes, anthropology. And I was like, who trained you to take anthropology?
It's about as useful as underwater basket weaving.
Right. Or lesbian dance theory,
right.
Or some of those classes. And you know what's funny is she goes, well, nobody. And so I told her, I go, okay, so you just said you know, men are trained to do STEM fields and women don't get the same opportunity. You're telling me that you are a strong woman who has opportunity, but you just didn't choose a STEM field. And I asked her, well, what do you think about the fact that 4 out of 5 of the lowest paying degrees are predominantly women? 4 out of 5 of the highest paying degrees are predominantly men. She was livid. They cut the interview. They were like, you don't have to answer anymore. You don't have to say anything. The girl's saying, you know, you don't have to say anything. You guys come over here. You ruined our day. You're rude, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking like, and then it's one of the funniest lines that got me. I didn't even think it was funny when I did it, but people keep laughing. She goes, you know, as a reporter myself, I think you keep interjecting your opinion. Of course, my opinion, my facts are opinions, right? That's always what it is. They're just my opinions, even though they're facts. She's like, you keep interjecting your opinion.
Your questions are opinions, even.
Yeah. I'm like, I got her to contradict. She was that, and she goes, you know, most reporters wouldn't take that approach. And I just go, yeah, I'm not most reporters.
I'd be like, that's the problem. That's why I'm here. Exactly. You literally just hit the nail on the head. What I don't understand about these people who propagate the wage gap is they're always so concerned. We need more women CEOs and we need more women in high places and STEM fields and all this stuff. Okay, well, I'll tell you something. Why don't we have equality in garbage men? Why not waste management? You don't see a lot of women dealing with the stuff that comes out of your body after taco night. You don't see a lot of women dealing with that kind of stuff. Well, no, that's just one subject. The men can do that. This is really kind of funny, though, because you know what? You will not see a lot of women going into jobs like that. Garbage women. All the gross jobs that only men do. You know, the dirty jobs, the disgusting jobs that there are literally maybe like one woman out of every 5,000 men that do that job. They don't want anything to do with that job. They don't want equality there. When it comes to those kind of jobs, everything's just fine. They're just fine with the patriarchy, you know, and you could imagine a world where all the men were like, okay, let's have it your way. Every single job here from now on, we're going to have an equal number of men and an equal number of women. I guarantee you these feminists would be running for the hills and begging for the patriarchy back. They would be begging for the patriarchy if they had to go and deal with what comes out of folks' bodies after taco night. Believe me, they would be running back to the patriarchy so damn fast, it would make their pussy hat spin right on top of their head, okay?
Oh, man. No, you know what? I fall in line with that is I realized, in the beginning, I started my show more out as a monologue with pushing ideas. And when I realized that I didn't even need to waste time writing crazy scripts with an extreme argument trying to disprove the left, kind of bring it back to the beginning, all I had to do is to go out there and let the left defeat themselves live on camera without much effort. And that's what's sad. Okay, yes, I'm a college educated man. I don't have a graduate degree, but I went to college. Yes, I grew up with a parents' home where people were married, and it was generally a happy home. Okay, whatever you want to say, privileged, advantaged, whatever people want to call me. You know what? As an American, I am privileged to live here, and I am blessed that my parents made good decisions, that they supported me, that they cared for me. I mean, my dad came out of poverty, so it's not like we have this long line of, deep money where I'm just this 10th generation
Old
rich
money.
kid. Yeah, I'm fighting for my life and for the rights of my children. And out here in Los Angeles, one of the great things is that we are such a minority. Not necessarily in all of California, believe it or not. I don't know if you're familiar with the gubernatorial candidate Travis Allen. I love that guy so much. I mean, I don't know if you let people do public endorsements, but
Sure,
I personally,
yeah.
my show publicly
Okay.
endorses Travis Allen because he wants to take back California. And what's funny is that when you go to the establishment candidate for the Republicans, which I don't know what Trump was doing. Sometimes I know Trump has his good days and his bad days, and people that say Trump just does only good things, they're not realists because he's a human, and he makes some pretty bad moves sometimes, and sometimes he makes some really good moves. Luckily for us, his really good moves tend to really definitely outweigh his bad moves.
Right.
And overall, he's a better president than he is a bad president, and that's the most that we can ask from someone is to do more good than bad, because every human in your life, look at every day, man. We all make mistakes. Whether you believe in the Bible and sin is sin, we all believe in some sort of morality and law. And we all make mistakes. But I know that he endorses man Cox. And that's one of the gripes I want to bring up, where I want our party to change. Because our party is no longer a Republican. Our party is conservative, new wave conservative, and also rationalist in the fact that we are right-wing more than we are one party.
Right.
And we are full of libertarians and Tea Partiers and independents and free thinkers and non-voters. We are a diverse group of people. And this establishment Republican, Cox is the establishment choice. You know what? Screw that. Because if you go to Cox's Instagram, he has like 1,000 followers. Travis Allen has close to 14,000. Do you know who uses Instagram? Predominantly millennials and I think it's Generation Z. Predominantly millennials and the next generation are using Instagram, which means the young people are going after these more vivacious and energetic and passionate and blunt, to-your-face politicians who may be crass, like with Roseanne. I would say Roseanne, she made a comment, which, by the way, Valerie Jarrett looked white. I didn't even know that she was part black. Okay, so I had no idea. When she said she looked like she was from Planet of the Apes, for those that are familiar, I had no idea that woman was black. I thought it was the same thing as Wanda Sykes, comparing Trump to like being, I think, an gargantuan or a monkey.
Orangutan.
So same thing. Yeah, and orangutan. There you go. And Bill Murray. I think Bill Murray was the gargantuan one. With these people, I thought it was just somewhat comedian being a silly and just being stupid, having the right to say what they want. But in the midst of that, when I saw the backlash and how quickly someone who's conservative got crucified for a statement that, okay, was it tasteless? That's up to you. I'm not going to comment on that. Was it needed? I'm not going to comment. Was it the Ambien that caused her not to say it? I can't back that one up either. But what I can say is that as conservatives, we don't need ABC. We don't need Roseanne to get our voice out. We don't need their networks and their shows. We don't need these establishment people. And I wish Donald Trump would have seen in California that, the Republicans are okay with losing here. That's what's crazy. Like this blue wall, they're just okay with losing this state. But recent polls that I've been seeing are that conservative and right-wing voters are nearing like around 40% in this state. But for some reason, the Republican, establishment has not noticed that. But the young people are. And so seeing someone who's energetic, who's just crass in your face, it's like Rosie. She was crass, she's in your face, but I would rather have someone say some things that might be off color, inappropriate, and at least know what they're saying than be polished and I have to try to read what they're saying, talking crap behind my back, or they're saying things on the podium and then changing their mind behind the scenes. I want real people, and the young generation is craving honesty and bluntness and truth. And that's what we want. And that's what Travis Allen and people are fighting for. But sadly, the Republicans still hold the power, and they're almost just as much. Oh, I might get crucified for this one too. But establishment Republicanism to me is almost just as bad as the left right now, in the fact that they're not accepting where we're going as conservatives. They're not embracing the newer generations. And Trump won because of what's happening, and they're still blinded to it. And I think they're still against him in some ways.
Yeah, I agree. And this whole thing about Rosie, I think we should, first of all, I have no intentions on apologizing to anybody on the left for, they jumped on her. They've been trying to rope her. They've been trying to string her up for quite some time. And they just jumped on this one comment. And, Rosie has made a career out of being vulgar, out of being politically incorrect. I don't know where they've been for the last 30 years, but I know she didn't just all of a sudden become a racist. And personally, I don't even find the comment, the tweet to be that weird, to be that at all. I mean, first of all, I didn't notice any sort of racial aspect to it. The Valerie Jarrett actually does look like one of the original Planet of the Apes, who are all played by white people. And apes happen to be the smartest of all the primates. The racial aspect of it was for monkeys. The blacks have been, they were referred to as monkeys. Leftists are getting their primates mixed up, but screw Roseanne for making that distinction. Okay. First of all, I don't think it was racist at all. I don't think it was a racial slur in any sort of way. She was talking about the way the lady looks. Her face literally looks like she could have come right out of the Planet of the Apes movie. Had nothing to do with her being half black or half Iranian. To be honest, I think the joke wasn't funny because the whole stuff about the Muslim Brotherhood, that's too true. Muslim Brotherhood goes around killing people and destroying lives, and the left is in bed with them just in every step of the way. They're trying to bring in these, Muslim legislators and all these people. We had the Uma Abedin would have been the chief of staff or whatever if Hillary Clinton had won the presidency. That would have been a freaking nightmare. These people are actually going around the world destroying people's lives. That's not funny. That's not funny at all. It was the Planet of the Apes part that actually made it funny. The Planet of the Apes part actually made it funny because it was a little thing about her looks. Okay, and that's what a joke is. It's a little bit of irony. You know what I mean? She's got the whole Muslim Brotherhood thing, which is actually terrible, and then we're gonna make fun of her face, which is kind of funny.
She apologized, but she caved, and that's what makes me upset is that I think she apologized because she was trying. I mean, my opinion is that she probably apologized to try to save the show, to save her. I mean, she cares about the people. That shows she cares about the people that work on the show, and she's basically going to say my comments and my opinions are not more valuable than saving the jobs of my cast members. So she came out and denounced it. But what's funny is I wake up to the first article today is by HuffPost, Rosie O'Donnell back on Twitter making racist tweets or whatever, and I'm just thinking, okay, you know what, guys, in the interviews that I gave to people, like I said, I just kept telling people it was racist. That's part of the fun. If you're a sharper minded person, you'll pick up on the deeper nuances of my show, which are not just me trying to make people look stupid. There's actually deeper elements and themes to my production that I'm trying to portray. And from the most recent video we did on Rosie O'Donnell was the fact that we didn't really arm anyone with information. They didn't really know anything up front, but they knew it was racist. Right. And that's what made me so sad was that why don't you there's even a girl that she goes, well, I think you should let the viewers decide if they think it's racist. I go, well, the truth is probably most viewers of your show don't think it's racist and don't really care. Right. And she actually goes, she gets so scared. She goes, oh my gosh.
How could you?
Well, I guess she goes no, yeah, but she's she got so confused and she's you got me on my own logic. Yeah. And I said, right, let capitalism, free market decide. If no one wants to watch the show at the next episode, if the next episode bombs, then I actually think it would have gotten more views to be straight with you. I think more people would have started watching it because they would have been dude, this girl's freaking more awesome than I thought. She just freaking kicks butt on Doesn't Matter. But she apologized and she stepped back. She caved. She caved, and I don't blame her because I'm sure she was freaking out. I mean, if she really was drunk on Ambien or whatever the night before and just woke up from a hungover and then had half the country against her, I mean, that would be pretty scary. But we gotta stop apologizing. We gotta stop apologizing for being blunt, even if it offends people, because truth is slightly offensive.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. I don't think she should have come out and apologized. She's like, guys, don't defend me. What I said was indefensible. Actually, what you said was pretty milquetoast for a comedian, especially when you have people like Kathy Griffin going around holding up people's heads and then going around saying, oh, it was a joke. It was just a joke. She's holding up Trump's head with the blood dripping down. Then you have Michelle Wolf at the prayer dinner, being totally nasty, being like a total, just like this awful, not even funny, just offensive jokes here, everywhere. But since they're leftists, they get a pass for some reason. And
Chelsea Handler actually said to Reverend Al Sharpton, do you find it weird or offensive? I'm slightly paraphrasing it that black people like watermelon and fried chicken. I mean, what is that? I mean, Like, what is that? I mean, Jimmy Kimmel has done a blackface. Sarah Silverman has done blackface. She's called Asians chink. Bill Maher's used the N-word. I mean, like we said, Wanda Sykes, who immediately came out and was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't handle this. I'm quitting the show. Did the exact same bit in her act just recently. I'm sure you have more examples as well.
Tons, yeah. George Carlin, he did this whole thing about, and he was actually talking about political correctness. He's like, why can't, you see, he's like, there's nothing wrong with the word nigger. It's the racist asshole that's using it. That's the problem. And then he goes, well, we don't accuse Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy of saying it. They're niggers. That, he was totally like saying all this, listen, comedians have been doing this for a long time. Like, it is just recently that this is become popular to go around flaying people for the words that they use, especially comedians whose job it is to tell jokes and whose job it is to push the envelope. Now all of a sudden, Roseanne is like tossed under the bus for like something that to me is so milquetoast compared to what everybody is sort of blaming her for, and compared to what all the other comedians are out there doing, it's just ridiculous. And like I said, just is another reason why the mask is coming off the left, another reason why they don't have a leg to stand on anymore. It's because people can see right through this stuff. People can see how, 30 minutes after she made the tweet, she was fired. This is the collectivist mindset of the left. This is the swarm. This is the collective that everybody, it's this hive mind where, and anybody who even remotely steps outside of it, they have to get got. They have to get got. So you have these people, these social justice warriors on ABC, even Roseanne's own castmates, the people who she's been working with for 30 years or so, the people whose career she made. She single-handedly made these people's career. They're coming out against her saying, oh, this is totally terrible. I can't believe Roseanne would go and do that, as if she's an actual racist. And the sad part about all this stuff, this is the really, really sad part, is that it takes the teeth out of actual bad things like racism. It takes the teeth out of it. You know what? Everybody's racist. Nowadays, if you're racist, that just means you just won an argument with a liberal. That's all that means.
No, you know what? And that's what's so insane is like at my church, there's a left-wing individual that, God bless him, but I mean, yeah, I wrote something truthful online and he started spreading to everybody that I was racist. Oh, yeah. And, it's funny and this is not bad-mouthing the church. I just mean whether you're in a church or you're in a school, whether you're in a university or a job, liberalism is a disease and it infects people to the point where it causes them to bring divisiveness. Church is a place of community. And I believe, although you do hear some negative things on the news in the Catholic Church or whatnot, the Protestant Church, I believe, is a backbone of our country. And I think evangelical voters are a huge core segment of the conservative vote. I think they're a huge reason why Donald Trump got into office. And I think they're a huge reason why we haven't lost a lot of our stance in the world. And I'm unashamedly, people say, oh, don't talk about your religion. No, I'm unashamedly a Christian. And what's so ironic is that people actually, even in the conservative move, even in the Christians, they're not conservatives, try to guilt trip me for being political and being a Christian, tell me, oh, is this what Jesus would do and stuff? I said, look, guys, Jesus also isn't going to have sex with a woman. Jesus is also not right. going to, go out and freaking eat Wagyu beef in Japan like I did. And Jesus is not going to do, I'm not Jesus, and I'm not trying to, that was his mission. That was his goal. But there's one thing Jesus set out for me in this world was to live according to what you were called to do and to live up to this a higher standard. And it's crazy that even in the midst of a church which stands on those values, liberalism even comes in and divides even a congregation.
Right.
And has someone coming in, I'm telling you, this person talked to maybe like 60 people. Hey, do you know that this guy's racist? And never really explaining them. It was always vague too. Like people would tell me he posted some racist things online and, he's doesn't like Mexicans or he doesn't like black people. And I'm thinking okay, dude, literally, what are you doing? And that showed me the scariness of what left-wing ideas do, is they embolden people to step out without any foundation, no need to have a foundation, where most people are afraid, but what if I look stupid? you are stupid when you believe these things. Like you can't hold on to these values without some sense. However, I will counteract it with saying my brother-in-law, he's a traditional liberal, which is more actually a traditional Republican. Where, I mean, he's liberal in ideas. He's smart. They exist, but he's also a liberal out in Dallas. So if you're going to be a liberal in Dallas, you got to be pretty smart. You know what I mean? You got to know your stuff.
Right.
But out here, where everybody is definitely leftist, I mean, I have watched this come in and just obliterate almost communities and have people even accuse me of things which are absolutely very far from the truth. And so that's what I was realizing. Like, I told some people who were accusing me, getting back to with Roseanne, saying, well, did you say this? I go, well, when did it ever become wrong for Christians to speak unpopular ideas? Isn't Christianity always been kind of unpopular around, like, in cultures around the world? Believe it or not, people say Christians are like this dominant force in society. That, no, honestly, for the most part, when you stand up for Christian ideas in society, you're laughed at. I'm being honest. It's just the truth. You really are laughed at. And I'm not mad. And you're also told to turn the other cheek. This is not like a big idea. And you know what's funny? Christians are often the ones that are the most persecuted. And you know what group backs up Christians? It's the right. They tend to fight for Christians who are unfairly persecuted, who are bakers who are told to go against their beliefs, their ideas. They're picked on. And I tell people, so why are you mad that Christians go against culture? That's what we're known for. But the left, what they do, they go against comedians for being funny. They're going against Christians for holding their own beliefs. They're going against people who stand for the Constitution. Americans, they're going against Americans for defending their own Constitution. I mean, they're attacking people for holding to a standard and to values. They're coming into every area. They always said, no, we're not going to come into your homes. We're not going to come into your churches. No, believe me, they're coming into our churches, into our homes, into our schools, into our shows, into our media platforms. I mean, everything that's sacred and holy to us is not sacred and holy to them. Everything is on the line to be controlled by the state. I mean, in California, I don't know if you're familiar with Bill AB 2943, which is actually trying to make it illegal for churches to give professional advice on people seeking
counseling
advice, like homosexuality.
Right.
And what's so funny about this?
It's against the law now to even suggest that you might be straight, or you might be a little, if you think you have a vagina and you actually have a penis, you might just be confused. That's against the law now.
Where's the science? Right, where's the science for this bill? See, people think that it's not going to happen to the country, but what goes for California, believe it or not, begins to go for the rest of the country. And if they're already pushing legislation that is not based on science, I mean, what the platform is, the people are unfamiliar with this, is this idea that you're born gay. And so since you're born gay, if you're going to offer services to counsel someone who's dealing with this, you're offering fake services because you can't be ungay or untrans or these things. Where's the science? I mean, like I said, I studied biology. I know these issues are complicated. I have nothing against the LGBT community. Some of my friends are gay. I have no problem. Yeah. But there's no science saying people are born this way. But because California has accepted that, it's enough to pass a law that might bar people from practicing their religious beliefs. And by the way, this is not, Christians are really, we're not walking down the street like, hey, to every gay person, you should be ungay. Like, that's not what we don't do that.
You would think though, considering the outrage.
That's how they make it act. But some people really do come in. Some people were molested and are confused sexually. Do I like men or women or both or whatever? And they're trying to find this out. And they're coming for advice from people who hold on to a standard of truth. And not even all of them are Christians. Some of them just come into the churches to look for advice, right? And help. And you know what? That nothing angers the left more than good-willed people with a standard of truth trying to help people who really need it, because they don't like people to actually get helped. They don't want people to hold to any truthful standards, and they don't like anybody to try to go out and think for themselves. It's just like, no, you're gay, you're born this way, accept it, you're trans, this is who you are. Now give your child puberty blockers and basically institutionalize child abuse at a young age. Let's just do this because it gives us more power. And you know what? Sadly, I'm telling you this, California today is what America would have been if Clinton was in office.
Oh,
That's just the truth.
Yeah, and about the gay issue, like it's one of those things where, okay, All right. First of all, I don't even know why the gays and the trans are together. You know, this is another one of these contradictions.
Insulting, right?
This is another one of these contradictions. Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, either you're born this way or you can choose. You know, if the trans want to choose their gender, the gays want to, you know, they want to say it's they're born that way, even without any scientific whatever. The most their science has to offer them is, well, some dolphins mate. You know, some dolphins are gay. Okay, you know, like there is such thing as an anomaly, and it's okay to say that things are an anomaly. Just because something is an anomaly doesn't mean that it's a bad, you know, it's that you're a terrible, awful person. But let's just call an anomaly what an anomaly is. It's anomalous. Being gay is anomalous. Being trans is anomalous. It's not normal. It's not the natural state of being. You know, it's like when I bring up the whole like biological mother and father issue. You know, they say, well, what if the straight parents were crackheads, and what if the gay parents were, you know, loving and supportive and you know well put together and well adjusted? I'd say all things being equal. What part of that did you not get? All things being equal, there are certain things that are true. There are certain things that are false. Nothing pisses off a liberal more than somebody who is certain about the facts of reality. Nothing pisses them off more than someone who is certain about the facts of reality.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think that's why we have to, as conservatives, defend people who hold on to standards of truth, whether we disagree with them or not. That's why the religious base is important to what we do. And I want to get that message out to people, young people who are kind of like, no, the religious people, they're just the establishment. No, it's not true. We are breaking out. And by religious, I don't just mean Christian. I mean, religion is when you hold to a set of standard and beliefs, right? That is inherently what religion is. You can be a non-Christian religious person. You can be an atheist religious person. Religion is when you hold to standard of truth. And I know that that's what's debated today, right? Like you mentioned earlier, postmodernism. And that's what I think it really begins to boil down with. We have one group of people who are postmodernists in the most basic and genuine way, in the fact that because they deny truth, they can't even agree with themselves. Right. And they're losing their base because they're making assertive claims on a platform that says that you can't make assertive claims, as you mentioned earlier. So because they're easily pulling people into a place, because I believe humans are deceitfully wicked in our own minds, and our minds are deceitful, and we can't really know them very well. And so it's really easy for us to want to fit reality into what we want it to be and shape it into our desires, rather than doing the hard work of trying to understand the way things really are. So the left, what it has developed into, and I'm not speaking historically, and I don't want to get into that, just what it is today, especially in more progressive neighborhoods like Los Angeles, is that it says to you, listen, just go do your job. If you don't do well, we'll take care of you. If you're not doing well, we're not going to ask you to do better. If you're not doing well, it's not because you suck or you don't have skills. It's because somebody else put you into this position, and it's not that you're not good enough. It's just that somebody else is keeping you here. So just keep living a mediocre life. We'll take care of it. Vote for us. And we can kind of re-engineer the society into what we want, lining our pockets and transforming, ironically, these white – it's always these white liberals out here that claim to be so diverse and into this idea.
Hate white liberals.
They're
the worst kind of freaking.
They all live in the neighborhood. They're all living in these neighborhoods, in West LA and whatever together. There's no minorities, believe it, there's no minorities in these neighborhoods, and they're all talking about how they're so diverse. So these are the people pushing the legislation, right? And then they put in like a Hispanic mayor of Los Angeles to make it seem like they are, but they're not. And they're pushing this idea, and people it's crazy out here. They just flock to the liberal establishment. So then what happens is the big mean dad comes in the room and says, hey, this is kind of what I would boil new wave conservatism down to. Listen, you're poor because you suck. And you don't need to suck for the rest of your life. Jimmy or Sally over there, they're not where they're at because they're stronger and prettier than you. You can go out there and you can make a name for yourself. You know what? You want to make money? Go work your butt off. And you know what? The problem with that is that doesn't feel good. There's a come to Jesus moment, like they call it, where like when someone tells you, like when you realize you're 18 or 19 and you don't deserve anything, that you're not entitled to anything.
You didn't do anything special.
Right. Having 300 followers on Instagram doesn't make you entitled to some sort of like top job where you just sit down and do nothing. You've got to prove yourself in this world. You've got to gain a following if you want to be in the public eye. You've got to gain reputation if you want to be in the professional field. You've got to gain strength and skills if you want to be in the workforce. I mean, that you've got to go out and all these people that you might have looked down upon, like plumbers and stuff, you realize they actually make a lot of money and they're working their butts off and they're very respectable. When you get to that position, you're like, dang, man, I'm going to do this. And instead of being a woman being like, oh, only pretty women get ahead. Well, freaking go cut your hair and, trim your eyebrows and go put on some makeup. It doesn't hurt, liberals they tell people to be ugly. Oh, you're just ugly. Just stay ugly. You're fat. Just stay fat. You're poor. Just stay poor. But conservatives do the hard thing where they tell you be more than you are today. Right. And then when you ask them, this is the crazy. When you ask a conservative, well, how do I do that? They do this thing, which is I'll get to in a second, which is the opposite of what liberals do. When liberals tell the Democrat leaders out here, well, how do we do what we're doing? They give them the answer, and they tell them how to just stay where they're at. Right. Conservatives go, you're going to have to navigate these waters on your own. You're going to have to figure out truth for yourself. And if you want to get where we're at, you're going to have to push tooth and nail and work mentally, spiritually, physically to find a way to get at a higher level if you want to break out of it. And you know what that does to the human heart? It gives it hope and passion and vigor. Yeah, you liberate because you're like, you know what? I might be poor outwardly, but I don't have to be and act poor. So what you'll find is I don't have to be and act poor. I can get in a better position. I'm not going to start acting rich and famous and well-known once I'm rich and famous and well-known. I got to find a way to be what I want to become now before I've even become it. And you know what? To me, though, just the people who are driven, that's awesome. That's freedom. That's letting me jump out of my cage and say, you know what? So what if I only have $5,000 in the bank and I just drive a Honda Civic and I live in an apartment, which is like $3,000 out here in LA anyways. We could own a mansion in like Texas. I mean, I'm like rich in Texas, but out here, I mean, I'm just like your average, dweller. But I can do more than what I'm in. But that also for a lot of people requires what's this crazy thing, which is hard work. And people are inherently lazy. And so, you know what? It's easier to be fat than it is to be skinny. It's easier to let yourself go and be ugly. And you know what? The left, it's sad. It's easier to say that you don't get men because men are chauvinistic pigs. No, it's because you are dyke-looking, butchy-looking person and you're ugly. Like, I've never met a feminist in the real world outside of Hollywood that I found attractive, period. I haven't.
Right.
And so it's not.
Well, it's because beautiful is just patriarchal. It's just, and that's the thing. They sit here and they criticize men for all this toxic masculinity, for finding certain women attractive and other women not attractive. And then they wonder why they're 40 years old, don't have any kids, don't have any love. They're super sad. They don't, they've wasted their whole entire life, busting chops and, trying to just go around and make men feel bad about themselves. And they wonder why nobody loves them.
Dude, you know what? That's the funny story. Some girls that I know, there's about 5 girls I know that, I hope they don't listen to this because they do watch my channel now. But they're all strong feminists and they actually made fun of my show. Then I went over to their house. A mutual friend of mine invited me to sit down and discuss with them some issues. They're all feminist. I will not comment on anything beyond that since I do know them and they might hear this. But they're feminist and they were sitting around and we were discussing real issues and I was really bringing up real facts. Not only that, but they were very interested. They were kind of like, it almost felt like it was like surreal that like a man was in like a decent looking man. I'm not talking myself up. I'm athletic. I work out. I take care of myself. I'm tall. You know what I mean? I make money, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm there. And they were so like enthralled to hear like a man speak. And my one friend tells me who's I wouldn't call her a full feminist yet. She hasn't been brainwashed, but she told me, she goes, it's so crazy because all my friends, just were ready to just hear you be like
chauvinistic.
All my friends here were ready for you to just be stupid and be dumb and not have any support, and they were blown away about how intelligent you were. And I was thinking that for a second. I was like, wait a second, I didn't think it was that intelligent of a conversation.
Right.
Like I just was just giving some basic foundational understandings of where I come from on my beliefs and where I stand. But at the same time, being that close to a man who is everything they disagree with, and they thought I was chauvinistic and a pig. And then I came out with half decent answers. Probably they even said they hadn't had a man in the apartment in a while. And it's like, yeah, because you came in here thinking I was going to be a pig. Listen, I don't want to be with a girl who's like that. I want a lady. And you're over here telling me chivalry's dead. In order to open up a door for a lady, it has to be a lady. But if you want to be like a man, I'm not going to open the door for you, because I don't open the door for men unless they're old, or like disabled. That's part of being a man. It's doing your own thing. And when you're a woman over here, that's what makes me so sad. Is like these are like potentially good looking women just.
And they've been beaten into submission. They've been beaten into submission by this brainwashing that's happened. And and this is the sad part about it, is that feminism actually hurts women. This is bad for women. This is terrible for women to be going around thinking all this stuff. I mean, they're not going to be. They think it's going to lead to some cosmic happiness if they just go and, oh, I am woman, hear me roar. But, in actuality, look, men and women are different and they're complementary, and that's okay. Feminists, the problem is they've taken on the worst qualities of men. They're like, oh, well, we have to bust chop, we have to go around and be ball busters all the time, and that's what being a woman is all about, because they think that that's what being a man is all about, and they don't acknowledge the nuance. They don't acknowledge that certain, that there's good, there's give and there's take, and that there's a complementary vibe that goes on between men and women, that if they would just embrace it and not let their gender studies teachers, scare them away from men, they would actually be a lot happier. Women happen to be more ornamental. It's just a fact. They happen to be more ornamental. And for women to go around saying, oh, well, this is just the patriarchy. The only reason I wear tampons is because some men. No, it's because it's healthy. It's like a health hazard to go around bleeding. People have been doing this for years and years and years before there was any such talk about
your
patriarchy.
Nipples are distracting. Wear bra. I mean, it's just if mine were giant and puffy, I'd probably wear stickies over mine too. It's not like a sexist thing to say that we're different. I mean, we need to be different. And it's so funny because you know what? I love this. So there's this one verse in the Bible that people love to attack me on when I come across people on the streets. The minute they find out anything that they can attack me on because my arguments are so strong that they'll just jump on it, right? And they'll be like, oh, so are you conservative? Oh, you're a Christian. Oh, the Bible says women are weaker. I go, no. Actually, they were onto something back then. So, this is thousands of years ago, and we think they were stupid, but at this point, they were smarter than we were today, these kings and stuff, because what it says is that they're the weaker vessel, not weaker. Mm-hmm. And I said, now think about this. Which vessel in your house is used for the most eloquent and delightful gatherings? It's the fine china. The fine china is the most delicate. It's the weakest, but it's also the most beautiful. See, it's quality that makes it great. Isn't that it's strong? Everyone knows, right? Like when you're a kid, don't break the fine china. It's not, and you're not saying that because you're like the fine china. If the fine china sucked, then you would break it.
Right. One is better than the other. If you don't use the fine china, well, then you just hate everything else. You hate all other vessels.
Right, but that's what they're trying to be, something they're not. And so it's saying like, look, when we're saying that you guys are different, this is what I want women to understand. When you guys are saying you guys are different, let's just think about like your that old trusty plastic cup that you should probably throw away that's in your house that has too many scratch marks and has some residue inside maybe or something.
Right.
You don't even know why you own it anymore. Okay, that is strong. It's ugly, and that's, to me, that's what men are. We don't have the curves, we don't have the look. The men that are really pretty, I tend to find that most of them tend to be gay, but that's not true in all cases. I've just worked in photography and film for a little while, and that was just my experience. But the reality is most men, our quality isn't that we're beautiful externally. It's that we're useful. It's a different kind of quality, right? We're long-term, we can take a beating. That's who we are. And plastic cup, you don't want to give that to your guest. And so while it has its purpose, that's why you don't throw it away. It's not what you want to put out in the public, right? That's why you see mostly women on the front of things. It's not because we're objectifying them and trying to sexualize society and make women, just objects. It's like, no, because women are just natural. They're the fine china. They're the best part of the human race in aesthetics and in use and things. And we love them for what they bring. There's a delicacy and a classiness and a fanciness. So then when you have a woman who abandons that, and you have basically a fine plate that abandons that and tries to be like a man, they just end up broken and useless. And that's what feminism is. It's a broken and useless ideology that has crippled a huge portion of the female population. Thank God it's losing popularity in this country, and thank God I'm never going to marry a feminist. So
thank God. Thank God, absolutely. I will never marry a feminist either. Feminism is, all that is dark and evil about the world today. Like, I swear to God, this is just one of these things that, and we can talk about this on another episode. I'd love to talk a little bit more about first tier, second tier, third tier socialism, because I do really believe that a lot of these people, they're just useful idiots to the folks who are actually out there trying to explicitly destroy things. You have a lot of really well-intentioned people who get stuck in these classrooms where these teachers are shoving this stuff down their throat. They're getting bullied. They're the only way for them to keep or maintain any friends or good grades or a decent standing or any kind of social standing is to toe the line. You toe the line long enough, you're going to start to believe your own bullshit, and eventually you are just going to turn into this broken type of person who basically, like you just said, is absolutely useless. Okay, 4th century underwater basket weaving is not going to be a good career for anybody. I'm sorry, that's just not the way it is. Anyway, I got to shut down the show right now. I am so glad that you came to join the show for today. I had a lot of fun doing this. We went over an hour and a half, and I don't usually do that, but I could talk about this stuff forever. We're here with Elijah Schaffer. He is the creator and the host of Slightly Offensive. You can get him on YouTube. You can get him on Facebook. He's going to be all over the place. Like, I do believe this guy is a rising star, and I want you to be a regular on the show. I definitely want to get back together and talk about some things.
I love that.
We can do a little cross-pollination here. I'd also like to talk to your friend, your comedian friend, who got attacked the other day. Yeah, I would love to do that. And
she has a podcast herself, so that would be cool. She has she's really good on the air anyways, and she would love to talk to you.
Yeah, we could do a joint episode or something. We'll release them on both. We'll cut the audio and release them on both of our different platforms and everything. But this has been a really, really great conversation. I wish I didn't have to cut it short. I've got an appointment I got to take care of. But thanks so much for joining the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Disgruntled Millennial. And I appreciate you just letting me be on here. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Absolutely. This is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial from the Disgruntled Generation. You can get me at disgruntledgeneration.com. I have a brand new swag store. We've got America stuff. We've got lefty, we're razzing on lefties with our shirts. We've got the 100% the sparkling leftist tears, 100% Covfefe. We've got the Love Trump's Policy shirts. We got the American flags galore. We've got so much cool stuff. We got some Second Amendment stuff. We got the Defend Yourself, freedom rights. We have the March for Our Rights. A portion of all proceeds from that website goes to the Freedom Rights Organization, which is an advocacy group for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We are the ones who organize the March for Our Rights, the ones that we were talking about earlier, the one in LA where Joy Villa and Sabo and Arthur Schopper and Ari David from the Ari David Show, they were all there. Fleckus was also there. I like to say Fleckus Porn because his stuff is really, really good. Me and my brother, we like to say Fleckus Porn. Anyway, it's the swag store is now open. You can go out and buy as much stuff as you want. It's going to be really, really cool. You should wear your patriotism all over your chest. Anyway, this is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial, signing out.
Well, I'll say thank goodness that Donald Trump done legalized white supremacy. Ever since I joined the force, I've been dreaming of the day I could put the hurt on them racial and social minorities.
Yeah, I hear you. I done opened up a hefty can of whoop-ass on 4 of them faggots just yesterday.
Haha, for what?
Nothing. They were just acting all gay and stuff. Those pants were so tight I could see his religion.
Well, what do we have here?
Well, God has just blessed us with a runaway negra. I do believe that man is driving while black.
Well, come on, Billy Joe, let's get him.
Put your hands outside the window, boy. Don't make me tell you twice now. Have your license and registration ready. Turn that music down, boy.
Can I help you, officer?
Oh, wait a minute, you ain't no name. You know why I pulled you over?
This nigga, of course I do, man.
I'm driving while black. You see a black man driving down the road, and you think you can just pull him over without no due process and no judge and jury and taking away his constitutional rights, man?
Yes, but, no. We mistook you for, a jigaboo, okay? The law says you can't be driving while black, and you are clearly not a black man, so you're free to go.
What you talk about, man? I am black. Everybody know the black and the berry, the sweet of the juice, and I'm as black as they come.
Now that institutional racism is the law of the land, I could get in trouble for beating up on a white boy.
Man, pick up that baton, beat me till I'm dead, or I'm gonna sue the city for discrimination.
False alarm, Billy Ray. It's just Sean King again. My, that boy's about as confused as a fart in a fan factory.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor de Blasio proudly presents Black Spear in the Park.
I like big butts, and I cannot lie. Thou other brothers canst deny. When a fair maiden walks in with an itty-bitty waist and a rotund thing in your face, thou gettest sprung. One to pull up tough, 'cause you noticed that butt was stuffed. Deep in the jeans she hath weareth. I am hooked, and I can't stop stareth. Oh, baby, I wanna get with ya and paint thou portrait. My brethren hath tried to warn me, but that butt thou hast maketh me so horny.
Totally amazing. Oh my God, it's art. Oh my God, it's art. Yes, it's art. Oh my God, yes, this is amazing. Total art. This is art.